was good. I was my wife was out of town for a couple days, so she came home today. So just always a reminder that she can never leave me, because even just 4 days, it included a weekend, which normally doesn't happen, but 4 days single parenting 2 kids, it's rough.
I I thought, since we had talked about that the topic of this was Charlie Kirk, that you would say it was a rough week because I was thinking about Charlie Kirk.
I mean,
but I guess for you,
rough in a variety of ways, but I was thinking more kind of personally, egocentrically, what was
so we
rough
can
for
see
me.
what affected Rob the most.
Yes.
So I have been, I would say I've been anxiously looking forward to this episode, because I think it is important that we talk about Charlie Kirk, and not from a political lens, but about the politics and how the politics have sort of revealed themselves in our reaction to it.
Agreed. As part of me reflecting upon what happened, and more specifically the reactions to it, I was definitely, again, interested. I don't know what other word that comes to mind here. Interested in having a conversation with you about this.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into this topic, which is a serious topic, we have an announcement.
We do have an announcement. It's a shrink space first, Dave. We have our first sponsor of our show, so I think we can give ourselves a round of applause.
Wow, well done.
You don't know the amount of work, hustle, and effort it took me to get this first sponsor.
Yeah,
it was a lot of work. I mean, the hours. I mean, one could almost say the years, decades, even in the making that this was.
You've spent. Imagine. I mean, think about what you've put up with.
What I put up with, the blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah,
that has resulted in what will be probably the best ad that this organization has ever had.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Rob.
Really, what it is, it's my wife Jen has a HR consulting firm, Patterson Consulting Group, and we were talking a while ago, and she mentioned that she was thinking of asking us to talk about her business on this show, and I was, of course, flattered, and then, of course, had a list of prerequisites.
Yeah, we have a reputation here.
Yeah.
We don't just pass these out.
Yeah, definitely not. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, she did not meet most of the prerequisites. Yeah. Little did she know the amount of people, just stomping at our door trying to get on this show.
Yeah. These are expensive minutes that we're spending on her.
That's right. But seriously, I was excited to be able to talk a bit more about her business on the show. And she did give me just a couple of things to talk about. So I will just read a little bit about her business here. But again, it's Patterson Consulting Group. She is a full service HR consultancy whose primary purpose is to help organizations focus on people at every level of the organization. So they provide a lot of customized HR solutions. You and I do a little bit in this space as well. But what I would describe her organization is doing is more of that day-to-day block and tackle type of HR work, in addition to more of that strategic HR work. So she does both.
So this is for companies that don't have a full-time CHRO?
Yes, it can be both. So she works with small and medium-sized organizations that may not have much of an HR team, if at all the way up to larger organizations who need someone to support with a specific project or task that may require just additional set of hands for a couple months.
Awesome.
So I've seen her do the work. I've seen her build the business. It's been great.
The company that you and I work for uses Jen.
We do. We've used her, and we recommend her, and not just me. So it's not just me who's being told, hey, you better recommend me to others.
She has sort of exchanged some favors, it seems like.
she's gone through a lot. Uh, but no, yeah, she's worked with a bunch of organizations. The business has been around for about 5 years now. She has a team of people. So would highly recommend anyone who is looking for HR support in their business to reach out. Again, the name of the organization is Patterson Consulting Group. Her name is Jen Patterson. To reach out and find out more, you can email info, I-N-F-O, at pattersonconsultinggroup.com. We'll provide a link to that email address as well as her website in the show notes. So
Perfect.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, so back to Charlie Kirk. So let me start by, let's just talk about our experiences of finding out about it.
Yep.
So my experience was I was just on Instagram when I shouldn't have been, just doom scrolling. And I see him talking about, I can't remember what he was talking about. And then I saw him like executed. I think I texted you immediately and I go, did you see that? I mean, it was, I'm not sure I've seen anything so brutal.
Yeah.
Like it shook me because I wasn't ready for what I was going to see. And it was so, I mean, it was like I saw somebody really get killed.
Yeah, you saw someone get murdered.
Yeah,
on
right in
social
front of
media.
me, which was wild.
Yes,
And so I was, I feel like I was taken aback, and I didn't really know how to respond to it. So, like, if I were to clock, like, what's the emotion? The emotion was, I think I was surprised. I think I was scared. I was, and not scared like everybody's saying, like, oh, there's crazy people out there, or you can't have a debate in the United States anymore. I was scared by just the idea that out of nowhere you could be shot like that, right? And someone that you have heard of, someone that's a public figure, doesn't really matter, but somebody not engaged in conflict just gets shot. I think it would land differently than if I was watching if I was watching a war, or if I'm watching a UFC fight and someone gets knocked out. Like, you're in the mindset to understand this is what happens in this space. But I think it scared me, the idea that someone could just get shot when they so didn't deserve to be shot like that.
Do you think that part of your reaction was because you saw it?
Yeah. I think if I think about if I think about, like, how does there's like a, people talk about what triggers PTSD, because some people will be in battle and they'll almost die, or they'll see someone right next to them die. And then you could have people hear about a death and have trauma from that experience. I think that what separates those two, I think researchers think, is the extent to which the event operates outside of your worldview. If you expect and think you live in a world where X, Y, or Z happens, when it happens, it's not as shaking to who you are. But when things happen that fall far outside of the way you see the world, it's that leads to trauma. I'm not saying that I had trauma from it, but I definitely had a emotional reaction, like, oh, holy fuck. It was just so intense and unexpected.
And I think that description makes more sense, because when I heard you say that you had that strong reaction, it made me think, well, I mean, gosh, there's so much gun violence. I mean, that same day, not too far from where you are, there was a school shooting.
Yep. Yeah, in Evergreen.
Yes. And so, I mean, I wonder, like, it's almost become like a thing we just hear about now. It is not uncommon.
Yeah.
Anymore. Mm-hmm. That was one of the things that surprised me. So if I take a step back, I didn't know who he was prior to this. After seeing him, I have seen him doing his, go to college campuses and have conversations or arguments with people in a more public arena. So I recognized him once I saw him, but I wouldn't have known who he was prior to this.
Yep.
So when I heard about it, I did not watch a video, and yeah, that would have been difficult for me. I yeah, would have not have volunteered to look at that, and I
Yeah,
have.
I also, by the way, I cannot believe that that was on Instagram. I didn't search for it.
I mean, that's part of the issue.
Mhm,
Um, but um, but yeah, I heard about it, and I was just like, another kind of political type of figure in our country
mhm.
shot dead.
Yep,
Now, this
yep,
comes on the heels of in Minnesota just a couple months ago, someone being murdered in their home, a state rep, and I believe her husband. Um, and I think I'm just more primed to look for things like that, given the the conversation and the thought around politics in our country at the moment.
mhm, mhm.
So at first, of course, I was shocked, and then I sometimes think to myself, like, "My God, it just continues to happen, and what's going to be done?
Yeah,
Probably nothing."
yeah.
So what was even more surprising to me, and maybe it shouldn't have been, was the reaction. Like
Yeah, say
how
more about it.
how like this took place what 5 or 6 days ago from when we're recording this,
Yep.
and it is still kind of headline news.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that was initially what surprised me is that this continues to be something that we're talking about.
Like, what? Like, why is this news more than, the Evergreen school shooting on the same day?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Like,
yeah,
or, we could talk about school shootings. We could talk about other, public acts of violence, political violence, even if it doesn't have to do with murder. Like, in general, these things happen. I think with some consistency, we only hear about some of them.
mhm,
Most of the time, when we hear about them, we don't hear about them for almost a week.
mhm, mhm.
But this particular event and tragedy has legs to it.
Yeah. I'm
And
not.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
interested to talk with you about is why that is.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of reasons. So let's talk about it first from like a psychological, like, why do we care about? So I guess I would make the argument that I think this is different, and I don't know that it's totally a consequence. Maybe you disagree with me. I'm not sure if it's totally a consequence of Trump and team's um, interest in him. Right? There's a lot of people talking about, you have JD Vance going on his podcast the next day. You've got Trump making everybody hold their flags at half mast. Like, there is a governmental interest in this. But I think outside of that, I think there's a couple of things that stand out. One, in the age of social media, we have many people had a parasocial relationship with Charlie Kirk.
Mhm.
We've talked about this like in the lens of Taylor Swift, but there were, like, for you and I mean, I feel like we're sort of out of it. But if you are 20 years younger than us,
Yeah.
he's the man.
Mhm.
So if you are a freshman on college campus, you watch his stuff, you like the way he debates. I mean, he is sort of the Gen Z leader of the right wing, and he is credited with getting Trump elected because Trump got the young vote, and Kirk led that charge and was super successful with it. So
Yeah,
there are
he got
people,
a
I think.
greater share of the younger vote in 2024. Yep.
Yep. And so I think people that follow him and watch him uh, can feel like they know him. They know his family, they know his wife, they know his kids, and so it's different than some kid at Evergreen injured people and then shot himself in the parking lot. Doesn't have the same. I don't know who that kid is, and I've heard about so many school shootings that I'm numb to it. Versus watching someone I've been listening, like a person I know, get executed that way.
I, I I think that is a valid point. I mentioned before that I had never, I'd heard of his name, but he was not someone I knew much about.
Mhm,
And so I think that was part of my surprise is he is viewed or he is a celebrity to
mhm,
some people.
mhm. Yes.
And if you take a step back, their reaction by some people is similar to that they may have to a celebrity who they're very in touch with and enjoy a lot. For them to be murdered,
Yeah, it's
it's a
interesting.
similar
Yeah,
reaction.
When you say that, I'm just thinking like, yeah. So if it had been whatever Matthew McConaughey that got shot like that, it would have that story would have legs also,
It'd have legs, I'd say, and
right?
I'd say it wouldn't have as long of legs, but it would have legs.
Hmm. Hmm. The other thing I think is interesting about this is I'm going to get people sending me hate mail about this, but I feel like there is also a performative component of our reaction online. If I look at the different things that people are posting, very rarely do I think, oh, that was a nuanced view of this. What I usually think is that is an extreme view on one side or the other. And then I wonder, like, for what reason are you posting that extreme view? Like I shared with you, I have a past professor that I really look up to that shared something online that I found to be totally offensive. I cannot believe that a college professor would post that, knowing that he has a very diverse group of students. But he posts this inflammatory thing. And it's like, what are you thinking? And to me, it's like, you don't, why do you have the need to say that? And I think part of it is he's performing and he wants people to know where he lands on the political spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I think I said something like this before. Social media is where nuance goes to die because
Yeah.
it is in a world or in a medium where you have a very discrete amount of space to share something. You're
Mhm.
obviously not going to get much nuance in there. A, B, no one, if you're doing this because you want people to notice what you're doing, being inflammatory works.
Yeah.
Being nuanced and thoughtful does not.
Yep.
And then C, I mean, social media uh, I think has almost always been a place to demonstrate your values, whatever values those are. I mean, outside of when Facebook first started, when you and I were in college, and it was a
Mhm.
place to show, you know, to post pictures and invite people to parties and poke them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, maybe outside of those first couple of years, it has since then been a place to demonstrate your values.
Why
And
do why do we have the need to do that?
I, I think it's. I have a couple of thoughts. I think one is it's a desire to feel heard. So
Mhm.
as people have opinions, and until 20 years ago, the way you got your opinion out there was either talking to people or writing like a letter to the editor of your newspaper,
Mhm.
and that was it. Like editorial teams, existed only in formal news media, and so I think it feels good that people feel like they can get that out there. Second, it creates a community.
Uh-huh.
So I I think we have, for some people, have started to move from physical community to online community. So your professor that you're talking about, he may have turned off a number of people, but he also connected with, in a positive way, I'm sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
with an equal, if not more, number of people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Those are my two
you're right.
thoughts.
Yeah, you're right. So you if I think about it less like people just, you know, expressing themselves to the void, it's not really the void. It's kind of like they're joining a march. They're protesting virtually.
Yep.
And that's maybe part of what that's interesting. I mean, that makes sense. I I thought about this from the lens of like what's the reason why we default to this? There's a political piece of this, and I know part of it is because Charlie Kirk was a political person,
Right.
but online there has been just this incredible split between the left and the right and how they have reacted to this. That's my perception. I guess I should ask, do you agree that there's been an incredible split as far as how people are reacting to it?
I have read that there has been an incredible split. I think there is a bit of a bias here in that only the people who are particularly partisan are likely to post things like that on social
Yeah.
media. There are I believe that there are many more people who may have an opinion or reaction to this, but
Mhm.
who don't go to some sort of social media to post that. And
That's
so what you're
yeah.
going to hear about are the people who have strong opinions. Like I have an uncle who um has like reposted on Facebook a um some sort of AI created video of Charlie Kirk walking to the gates of heaven, shaking Jesus's hand, and then the video ends.
Yeah.
And and I'd be surprised. I mean, maybe this my uncle is I don't know mid to late 60s.
Mhm.
I'm sure he knew who he was. He's definitely on the conservative side of the political spectrum. Um, but I think that his social media was flooded with things like that right after this
It's
happened.
I think you are, I think you are right, and I think I need to cool my jets on my outrage about the social media reaction, because that is exactly what's happening. Is I'm going online and I'm like, who are all these wild people saying such provocative things? And you're right that it's the person that's employed isn't posting.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
but that's
It
you're right. But I think that's the thing. That's what can be so insidious.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
do it too. I'd like to sit here and tell you that I don't, but when I'm, again, looking at Reddit or something, and
yeah,
I see, again, I saw stories about this, but stories about other things too, and I do catch myself thinking,
yeah,
there like the critical thinking part of my prefrontal cortex just seems to go to bed every time I open up,
yeah.
or like pass out every time I open up a social media app.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
B, I find myself doing the same thing that my rational side would say, of course, this is not true, which is generalizing these 100 people
Mhm.
that that I think represent a group into, 10 million people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point.
But that's the scary
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I was thinking about, okay, so yeah, so you're right. So the problem that I'm reacting to maybe isn't as extreme as I think it is, but I do believe that I have seen, at least on my feed, there does appear to be a significant split. So I wanted to talk about, why do we have the need to do that? And I do think that the first thing that I think about when I see that is, we are, my first reaction was to be sort of scared or freaked out by the ambiguity. Like, who's shooting? How is someone going to get shot like that? Was there nobody there to protect it? Like, I just felt so much sort of out of control. And so my first goal is really to get control by assigning some kind of purpose or meaning or explanation to what it is. And which
Yes.
is true, by the way. Like, we do that no matter what, anything bad happens. If you hear that someone gets in a car accident, it's really uncomfortable to say everything was going right and it was a fluke
Hmm.
accident. That's much scarier than, oh, well, that guy was drunk and he ran into a telephone pole. When I hear that, I go, oh, his fault, not going to happen to me. No worry.
Yep.
Right. But it's scary to think you could just be so the first thing we want to do is want to go, like, that's because he said some inflammatory things about karma. He deserved it.
Yes.
Or this is what happens if, on the left, you say karma, he deserved it, if you're in the extreme left. And if you're on the extreme right, you say this is a consequence of the media creating this narrative that everybody that follows Trump is a fascist.
Right.
Those are like the two political sides that I'm hearing about. Both are trying to assign meaning to, how does this kind of thing happen, and is there a path to stopping it?
Yeah, I agree. I want to add to what you said, and then I want to go back for a sec. But
Yeah.
to add to what you said, yeah, I think that's true. I think the other thing that I think of, just to go back to your broad comment around, we try to make meaning out of things,
Hmm.
especially things that are anxiety provoking or scary.
Hmm. Yeah.
I remember in a social psychology class back in college, and I worked in this guy's lab for a while. He researched terror management theory in social psychology. Um,
You know that I was obsessed with terror management theory.
Nothing makes more sense
Do
than
you know,
someone like
hold
your
on,
personality being obsessed with terror management
I
theory.
drove all the way. I almost left University of Denver to join University of Colorado Springs to work with Tom. What was his name? It was like Brzezinski, who was the terror management theory expert.
Okay.
Okay, so that I loved it. Is that were you not going to say this is a really great theory? What were you
No,
going to
no,
say?
no. I mean, I think, um, I, I mean, I was interested in it, but one of the things I remember from working in this lab, so the professor I worked under, I think his last name was Arndt. Um, but that was the first time I became exposed to a theory called like the just world, belief in a just world, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially a way to manage anxiety around us, that things happen for a reason. And so if there is a negative event that happens, people will try to look for a reason why it happened
Yeah.
so they can breathe a sigh of relief and move on with their life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I think is interesting is because in the research, what it will say is people who tend to be more politically conservative are more likely to believe that. There's a correlation between political conservatism
Yeah,
and belief in a just world.
I think that makes sense.
Right. Like
Yeah,
more
yeah,
traditional things like,
yeah.
don't change things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what we're seeing here is the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, part of the reason we're seeing this as an opposite is because it has a specific political lens to it.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention as to why
Wait,
we're having
will you go back to say it again? So you think we're seeing the opposite in that the people that are talking about a just world is the left. The left is saying it's karma, and
yes,
that's what you're meaning. Yes.
yes, yeah. So I mean, and again, these are broad correlations, and it's what I'm not saying is that people who are on the political left don't believe this. They
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
just happens to be a slightly stronger effect for people um, who are more politically conservative.
Yep. Yep.
The other thing I think we should just mention is the context here. And the context is, in addition to this being, potentially politically motivated, I think, we will continue to get more information as the days go on.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the guy who killed Charlie was just formally arraigned today.
Yep.
But I think in the background, you have Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's been really interesting to see, I don't have another word for it, is how his instinct and his default is to fan the flames of this to make it a bigger partisan political issue. Him and his allies politically,
Mm-hmm.
I have seen all over the place, even the day it happened, before anyone knew anything, making wild assumptions
Mm-hmm.
as to this person's intentions, um, who he was, what he believed, all those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's a Saturday Night Live skit that it reminds me of. And the skit is they're in a newsroom and they're reading about, and there's I think it's Shane Gill. There's a white guy and there's two black newscasters. And
Mm-hmm.
they say, there was this crime, and the white guy goes, oh, he can hear the crime, and he goes, oh, that's a white crime. We did that. And the black newscasters are high fiving, like, yeah, that. And then the next
Yeah.
one, and then it turns out it's more likely to be a black crime, and the white guy's like, yeah, yeah, and they go back and forth. And I feel like that's what we're
Yeah.
politically doing. Everybody's like, tell me this guy is on the opposite side. Whoever the shooter is, tell me he's on the opposite side of me,
Of my identity.
of
Yep.
my identity, so I can say that it's a problem with that identity, not that I have,
Yes.
right? Because we really struggle with the idea. It's an interesting thing psychologically that we struggle with the idea that he could, we may have, you could be just like this guy, except for you're not into shooting, not into murdering people, and that could be okay. Like, we don't have to be diametrically opposed on every level to this guy.
We
But
don't
like, we
have
have this
to.
need to separate.
Right. We don't have to, but increasingly over the past decade, at least in the United States, but I think this is occurring in many other countries right now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is this tendency to say that you fall into one camp or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I even found myself a little bit thinking like, oh, I hope some of this stuff isn't true because I don't want it to I don't want it to look bad given my identity. Even if I don't have a strong political identity, well, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of do. But even if it wasn't, it's like I had some of those thoughts again, and
Yeah.
that's where my rational brain had to say, "Hey, dude, like remember how
Yeah.
you don't like this? You don't
Yeah.
like that this is part of what our world is now. Don't do that."
Mm-hmm. What's interesting about it is, right, so the part of this, the part of the reason why you split into political sides is you want to find meaning and you want to understand it. Another reason why you do it, and you mentioned it earlier on, is that we tend to be we want to be in clans or tribes or cliques. We want to find people like us that we can be supported by, right? When the scary thing happens, you want to retreat to your family.
Right.
And so we are in this world, in an online world, our family is oftentimes our political team. What's interesting about that is you sort of de-individuate by joining those teams. And then as a consequence of that, if the guy that was the shooter was on your team, now you're part of that. And I
Yep.
think it almost sets you up for experiencing more distress versus saying, yes, we voted the same, but I'm nothing like that guy.
Right.
You know what I
Which
mean?
is a very logical thing to
Yeah.
do, but I think that's part of the issue is political. I mean, I don't have any stats in front of me, but the amount of if you go back to the 1980s and
Hmm.
before,
Hmm.
the amount of political switching in presidential elections
Yeah.
was high. I don't remember what high
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah.
it occurred with some frequency.
Hmm.
Fast forward to this most recent election, 2024, significantly less.
Interesting.
And I
I
think
believe that.
part of the issue is political parties have now become an identity group
Yeah.
where people are more likely to identify with a political party in a way that has not historically been the case. I think there's been ups and downs in our history,
Hmm.
but we are certainly at a peak here.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason um, we're seeing what we're seeing. The other point I wanted to make real quick before I forget is I was talking about Trump and his allies fanning the flames,
Hmm.
and I think, but I think that's a Trump thing. I don't think that's a Republican thing because I also saw a news conference with the governor of Utah, who's also a Republican,
Hmm. Hmm.
but the things he was saying were the things I would expect a political leader to say in a time of stress
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is we don't know, don't jump to conclusions. Obviously it's terrible,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we need like everyone settle slow down
Yeah. Yeah.
until we know what's going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
And right now we're just, we have people in power and, right now it's Republicans and there are Democrats who do this as well. But Trump, I would say is, you know, a master at doing this is saying, all right, well, this is something I think can get me political points to do. So I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. Does it? I mean, I guess because I agree. I agree. Like you and I always talk about, okay, we're not going to get political with it. Well, let's just talk about the psychology behind it. But it is hard to watch what feels to be such an intense effort to make it political.
Hmm.
And it's like, what's the benefit of doing that? Like he could come out and say something that's more sober and more reasoned with the goal of uniting people. But it doesn't seem like that's the goal. It seems like the goal is to say, look, the left is doing it again. I heard JD Vance come out and say, if you look at the statistics over if you look at the statistics over the last year, the vast majority of political violence has been from the left,
Hmm.
whatever. Well, part of that is probably because the left is not in power, right? Like you can't take a snippet of time and be like, oh, look, this side's more pissed in this time period. Well, if we switched back to when Biden was in office, that the data might not be the same. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like a weird, and it feels like an intentional effort to galvanize there's that side in a damaging way. And I'm like, to what end? What are you wanting? What is I don't understand. Maybe people tell me in the comments what I'm missing, but why? What is the incentive to do that?
Right. That's a great question. To go back to your other point, if you look at data, and I saw this chart over the past couple of days, in general, people who identify with a political party that aligns with the current sitting president are more satisfied. Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I voted for this person, and unless they're doing a terrible job, I'm going to be more happy with the direction of our country and all those other things.
Right.
And so, yes, that's what happens. But of course, you can look at a snippet and make the data say whatever you want it to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that is a great question. Like, why do this? I mean, the only reason I can come up with is, I mean, it is not new. I mean, that is just part of the Trump administration's kind of natural inclination. It seems like is what can help to I like the word used, galvanize my support. And I think that's one of the, if I can heighten the emotionality around something, people look to me, they feel like what I'm saying makes sense. And then I get more support. So I think it's at least, there are probably other reasons, but at least one reason is an inherently self-serving political reason. What do you think?
I don't, and maybe I am just a not strategic enough political thinker, but the idea that this event happens and that people, both sides, are like thinking about how they can use it for their own, for their political initiatives. I guess in my mind, when's the next election? Trump's done. What does he care? I mean, is the way that JD Vance handles this going to be impacting his run for office in 2028? Like, maybe they're that far out there.
Part of it. I mean, there's always another election.
Yeah. It just is a crazy, it just feels so damaging. So it feels very damaging. So let me show you a clip of something that upset me. Okay. On social media. Because I guess I'm going to make the point that I think it's happening everywhere. What we are getting is bad information. So I have heard a lot of people talk about this quote from Charlie Kirk, where he essentially says, in order to have guns, you have to make a sacrifice that people you're going to have people get killed. And then it's ironic that he gets shot. So here's that. I want to share that clip.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
So that is all over my social media feed. And there's always these snide comments about, well, you get what you deserve, or it's comma, or you said it first, or whatever, funny way people have to talk about this man who's been murdered. What is wild to me is that nobody shares the full clip. And I think if you listen to the full clip, it's a much more balanced perspective.
Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. Wow. And that is part of liberty. Wow. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. Wow. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools. Yes. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. Wow. But I think it's worth it.
So here's my point is, to me, when he talks about making the comparison to car deaths, he is seeing travel as something that we need, and he sees the Second Amendment as something that we need.
Sure.
Disagree with him or not, but I think that when you add the full clip, you get a much better picture of why he was saying what he was saying. But what you get on social media, and what I feel like people are intentionally doing, is clipping what he's saying in a way to make it seem like he was, in a very cavalier way, saying he didn't care about school shootings.
Right.
Which is not really what he was trying to say. He was saying, right, we have to accept risk in our society.
It's a cost benefit analysis.
Cost benefit, yes.
And for for him, he is the benefit outweighs the cost. Yeah, I mean, but again, I'll go back to the point, and I know it's maybe a utopian viewpoint to have at this moment in time, but we have to retrain ourselves. If we really think that we're going to get an accurate, comprehensive understanding of not only, I mean, an issue, my God, all sides of an issue, but even one person's perspective from a 30-second clip of something,
right?
We've lost it.
Yeah, that is it's interesting, because I wanted to show up because I wanted to complain about, like, why do we feel the need? Whoever clipped it, because that clip has gone all over the place.
Yeah.
Whoever clipped it did it in an intentional effort to make him look as bad as possible.
Sure. Like, again, karma. You got what you.
Yeah, and they're hoping that the world sees it and thinks exactly what the world thought when they saw that clip. And it's like, well, why that person should clip a bigger chunk? But then you're making a good point. We as the consumer are also quite stupid if we hear someone talking for 30 seconds and think that we understand their whole political ideology.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the mechanisms in our brain, I won't pretend to be a neuropsychologist, but from what I understand, the mechanisms in our brain, like we want the quick clips, right? We want 15, 20 seconds of something, and we want to look at things that align with our current belief system.
Yeah.
And so to look at the nuance of what he's saying, that's not going to that's not going to give us the dopamine hit that we're looking for.
Right.
And actually the social media systems aren't really designed for that. I mean, the TikTok and Instagram, I mean, those are reels where, I mean, I won't even let my kids watch most of these things because it's like they're going to ruin their brains.
Synapses get burned out. Yeah. I agree. Same. I don't like my kids watching it either.
No. But it's I think unfortunate that is a primary way that many people consume the news and then create an understanding of the world around them. It's not new.
Yeah.
It's just that before you had to only read a certain part of a newspaper article, or, maybe you only, you watched or you got news from a source that aligned with your political perspective already. But now it's so much worse.
Do you think it is? To me, it's one of two things. Either the social media algorithms have created an environment where people that want clicks have to put half truths out there to get the views, right? So if you post the 15-second clip where he says, it's a rational argument that we should allow that we're going to lose people every year because of gun violence. You could clip that, and you're doing it because it's going to get more traction online. Is that what's happening? Or are people saying, look how I'm going to intentionally, is there less of a need now, or less of an interest now in the truth? When I'll say it this way, when people used to write in the newspaper, they knew that they had a audience that was not going anywhere and that had the attention span to read the entire newspaper. So they were more incented, or they had the ability to tell the whole story or the truth. Now you don't have that same captive audience. So are you then just intentionally trying to trick the audience for the click, or are people intentionally misleading just because they can to share their narrative?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably both. I think you have more institutionalized, news sources who still believe they have a reputation, regardless of whether that's true or not. And they, may be less likely to do it, although I think they're doing it now because it's part of a business model. But I think we have to take a step even further back and say, I mean, we're just living in a different world altogether, where, you had to read a whole newspaper article, but people were also more likely to read a whole newspaper article, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Now, the incentive to do that is lower because you can find news, quote unquote, from other places.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about today is the guy that was the actual shooter. Why I want to talk about why do we think he did it? And I know that you and I are going to disagree about this a little bit.
Okay.
I think, and you tell me tell me what you think, but my perspective is that I think probably pretty obvious he didn't agree politically with Charlie Kirk. That's my sense. I think it was a copycat of Luigi Maggioni as a consequence of how the media praised, Mr. Eyebrows, because we got a real dapper looking guy that goes out and kills a healthcare CEO. And the media and there's a lot of people that were supporting him, Luigi, as a hero. And I think you have this disenfranchised person that has no voice. No one listens to him. He disagrees with Charlie Kirk. And I think he goes there and, he inscribed little things on the bullets, just like Luigi did. And I think that's what led to it.
Yeah, I think we will disagree. I think, I mean, I don't think you're altogether incorrect. But I would say first, it wasn't political. In fact, now I've not looked into this ahead of saying this. And so, prove me wrong, or maybe I can prove myself wrong later. I don't remember a strong reaction outside of the standard. This is not how we run our country. This is not how we conduct ourselves across the political spectrum. Right. I don't remember Trump when this happened saying, or I don't remember politicians having a bipolar reaction to Luigi Mangioni's murder of that healthcare executive.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right. Okay. It was more of a class difference than it was a political difference.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure I agree with you, but what was the class difference?
Well, I mean, it's a strong thing to say, but I would say across the board, I don't recall any politician saying that healthcare executive, he got what he got. I mean, and maybe he shouldn't be so greedy. I think across the board, it was pretty much a highly negative event for people. I think what I heard, again, on social media, it was more of a class difference of, all right, well, people in power versus people not in power.
Yeah.
Being more celebratory.
I think you're right. I mean, I think that there's people that I remember being frustrated and even talking to you about it, but being frustrated by the people that, like, I just couldn't imagine when that happened that it wasn't just all outrage. Like, this guy just walked up to somebody in the street and shot him. And there was, you got Bill Burr saying whatever,
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Free Luigi or what. I mean, it was on SNL, Chappelle's joking about it. I mean, it was, so like in Hollywood, they were talking about it, but maybe other than that, maybe it was class difference, not a political difference.
Right.
I think that's a good read. You're right.
It's a different way.
Yeah.
The second thing I just
wrote on the bullets. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So he wrote on the bullet. So again, that could be a copycat type of thing to do. I have not heard before, Luigi. I had not heard of anyone doing that before. Now, I'm not keyed into all of this violence necessarily, but I had not heard of that before. I think you're painting too broad of a brush that this guy didn't agree with Charlie Kirk politically. I would say from what I've read thus far, it was a very specific reaction he had to Charlie Kirk around Charlie's views of the gay community.
Yeah, transgender. Yeah, because the roommate was transgender.
Correct. Roommate, potentially love interest.
Yeah.
Is transgender. So,
Mhm.
so I mean, by all accounts, he grew up in a pretty politically conservative household. I've seen many pictures of him like shooting guns and things like that. So, and also remember, this dude is what, 20 years old.
Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean, so to make an assumption, like obviously he does not have a very, when you're 20, you probably, I should say this, when I was 20, I did not have a very well thought through political orientation. I had a very emotional political orientation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would say to say that he disagreed with the politics seems like a pretty broad brush. I think what we know is he disagreed with at least one particular policy thing.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think. You said, how else are you wrong? There's another way you're wrong.
I don't think it's possible.
I can't remember the third point I was going to make. But yeah, I mean, so is it a copycat? Well, I think as these types of things happen,
I said it was because of I think what you maybe disagree with is that I thought that the media wasn't harsh enough on Luigi.
Oh, okay, yeah, and
maybe you disagree. I don't know if that was what I think that was like the last thing I said that you might have disagreed with.
I mean, I think it was. I don't know if I have a strong belief or perspective there in either direction. Like I don't recall there being, much support of what he did. I think that they shared, they probably were sharing stories of people who weren't all that upset that he killed an executive as a representation of kind of power and class differences.
Yeah. But you're right. It wasn't to this extreme.
No. No. And you didn't have the president of the United States, as strongly weighing in or other political partisans as strongly weighing in either way, on either side. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, we will learn more about him, and maybe in a future episode, if people are interested, we can talk about that once it comes out, because I'm sure we'll get a lot more information.
Most definitely. Well, Dave, I think it was certainly a worthwhile conversation to have. Again, I think what I like about you bringing this up is hopefully it allowed for a bit more nuance.
Yeah.
To understanding why this happens, why people have those belief systems, and how that can inform how they see the world around them, and as a result, their reactions to something like this, which seems to be, from a purely objective perspective, there's one right reaction to this, which is, this is terrible.
Right. And that's it, just period.
But of course, it is never that simple, and I don't think will be for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. All right. Thanks, Rob. Oh, check us out. Let us know what you think in the comments, and check us out at shrinkspaceshow@gmail.com.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.